Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of To Play or Not to Play. Today, I'll be covering a game that is a rarity on PC, and has gained quite a following since its release. Known for its hardcore playstyle and the precision skills required to ace the game at higher difficulties, this is a spectacle fire that is unlike anything we've seen before. So, get out your umbrellas and stay clear of cyborg ninjas, because today, we're taking a look at Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance. In a time when the PC market is all but starved in the spectacle fire genre, comes a PC port of Metal Gear Rising. In this game, you play as Raiden, who is in a new, souped-up cyborg body, and can use incoming missiles as jumping platforms, as just one example of the capabilities this body gives him. I kid you not. The story this time starts off with Raiden's corporation providing protection services to the president of Africa. It's a time of peace, and all is right in the country, which is why some bad guys need to come along, kidnap the president, and then slash his throat open shortly thereafter. Otherwise, the game would be 5 minutes long, and much nerd rage would follow. Raiden, of course, follows the enemy, slashing everything in his way to bits and pieces. It says a lot about this game that the tutorial boss is a Metal Gear. They give you a couple of short combat sequences before the boss, but they use the Metal Gear to teach you most of the mechanics. For example, you can actually parry the Metal Gear's foot when he tries to stomp on you. Try to do that, Snake. All of this quickly escalates and ends up with Raiden getting his arm chopped off, again, of which the game is aware enough to even make a joke about. And then he also loses an eye, and the baddies get away. Ultimately, the story this time is fairly bare in comparison to a full-on Metal Gear game, and also never takes itself too seriously. The basic premise is that Raiden finds out that children's brains are being harvested, and then goes on a global rampage to put a stop to it. Is the story good? No, it's really not. There's only enough of a story here to support the gameplay and give the player purpose. Do we expect a Metal Gear Solid level of story here? Not at all. So it's difficult to rank the story in this regard. I'm going to give the game 1 point under play if you just don't care about the story at all and want to slash things to death. I'm also going to give the game 1 point under don't play if you do, in fact, care about the story. If the story is really important to you, then you should probably skip this game because it will disappoint you in the end. It's so over the top and corny at times that you just can't and won't take it seriously. Now, the gameplay itself is the meat and potatoes here, so we're going to go right to that. In Metal Gear Rising, your goal is to basically utilize the weapons and combos available to you in order to look as badass as possible on the screen. Of course, especially at higher difficulties, you absolutely have to parry. The parry system is interesting because you have to basically predict your enemy's moves. This involves moving the analog stick, if you're playing via controller, in the direction the enemy is coming from, and then pressing the light attack button at just the right time. Parrying is all about timing, so if you press it too soon or too late, then you will take a ton of damage. In many cases, bosses can't even be beaten unless you parry their attacks at just the right time. It'll take some practice to get used to this, but almost everything in the game can be parried, so keep this in mind. As you would expect with a game like this, combat is fast and fluid and requires precision. If you play on easy, you can kind of get away with button mashing in some scenarios, but typically you need to use combos that are effective against the enemy type you're facing. And of course, There's the Blade mode that was of much discussion before and after this game was released. Blade mode basically places everything in slow motion and gives you the freedom to slice and dice what's in front of you in any way you want and however many times you desire, until either you exit Blade mode or your energy bar runs out. Using Blade mode in combination with parry is typically how it's used. When you parry an enemy, there will be a brief opening where you can enter Blade mode to do a bunch of damage. Likewise, as you're fighting enemies, parts of their bodies will become vulnerable, and so you can use Blade mode to slice off their limbs. Usually, when fighting larger enemies, by the time you're done cutting them up, they will literally be diced into tiny pieces. Combat is fun and extremely fluid. Blade mode is awkward at first and takes some getting used to, but once you've mastered it, you can really unleash some havoc. It's also via Blade mode that you're able to get additional currency by slicing off the left hands of commanders, as well as replenishing your health and Blade mode energy by ripping out their spines. This game is gruesome, no doubt about it, so I would be wary of this before going into it. This is definitely not a game for young children, but if you're mature enough to take it for what it is, you can have a good time with it. So I give Metal Gear Rising 1 point under play for the combat system. This is the reason to play this game. If you love spectacle fighters and you've been itching for one to make its way to PC, then you absolutely need to grab this game. However, I do need to give the game 1 point under don't play for the fact that this is exactly the same as the console version. Aside from the fact that it includes all the DLC, there is nothing new or unique here, so if you've played it on console and you played it on PC, there's no reason for you to really purchase this game a second time. Alright, now we get into the disappointing part, the graphics. As you may or may not know, this game is a port from console to PC. In order to achieve 60 FPS on console, they need to make a number of sacrifices on the graphical side to achieve that. I'm pretty okay with that, as this isn't a game that I would want to play at anything less than 60 FPS. While Platinum Games did a great job porting the game from console to PC, textures are exactly the same as they were in consoles. Basically, if you've seen the console version, and you've seen the PC version. There's little to no difference in that regard. Yes, the PC version has AA to help smooth the textures and slightly improve the visuals, but the textures are still inherently low resolution. AA can't do anything about that. While the game does run smoothly, it's very disappointing that they didn't include higher resolution textures with the PC port. With this in mind, I have to give the game 1 point under don't play for the low resolution textures. There's no excuse to skip these for a PC game, even a port, and it really makes the game look rather abysmal at times. Lastly, the sound. I have little to say in this regard because, well, the music is pretty forgettable. It does the job, but that's about it. There were no songs that really stood out to me, and a lot of it blended together as I played through the game. The voiceovers, however, are pretty iffy. The script in itself is just as over the top as everything else, and while the voice actors do a good job overall, there are two voice actors that really bothered me throughout the game. First is Ryan himself. He sounds like he has a sinus infection whenever he talks, and I just can't get over how whiny he sounds. It's only when he transforms into Jack the Ripper that I was actually okay with his voice.
Doctor, turn off my pain inhibitors.
What? This is madness. You
do it!
All right.
Pain. This is why I fight. This is my normal. My nature.
His normal speech sounds forced, as if the voice actor isn't quite comfortable with it, and this bled into every scene for me. Next, it's a doctor you have to communicate with for a large portion of the game. Not only is his voice incredibly irritating, but he is prone to long, uninterrupted parts of dialogue that just grates on your nerves after a while.
We should be airborne in just a few minutes.
You sure you can pilot that chopper by yourself?
Right, of course. Need I remind you that we live in the golden age of unmanned flight? Even manned helicopters possess a robust semi-automatic mode. It is simple, really. So simple that I can continue to monitor your status and world marshal security from the pilot seat. I must say, for the world's largest PMC, their security procedures are quite poor. Quite poor. Sadly, I did not have the necessary permissions to override their plans. Nevertheless, the data I did find should prove most useful. So please, do feel free to contact me whenever you like.
I was forcing myself to not skip his dialogue at the end of the game. The other sound assets are fine, however. When you're hacking things into bits and pieces, fighting enemies throughout the game, everything sounds as it should with plenty of impact to keep you engaged. So, we're still going to give the game 1 point under combat sounds. This is what most people will care about anyway going into this game. However, I'm going to give the game 2 points under Don't Play for the forgettable soundtrack and the shortcomings of the voice acting parts. If these are major factors for you when playing a game, then you might want to think twice going into this one. To wrap things up, Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance is something of a rarity on PC. It's priced low, just $29.99, which again includes all the DLC, and it will please fans of spectacle fighters that either don't own a console or didn't play on a console originally. Japan has a bad track record when it comes to PC reports. Platinum Games did a great job here in comparison to many other attempts, so it makes me want to support their endeavor for just that alone. If the quality of console to PC ports continues to improve, then we can look forward to a lot of games that never made it to the PC platform in the past as time goes on. Whether this is the game for you or not, I'll let you decide. Take each point into consideration and answer with your wallet. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next episode of To Play or Not to Play. This is Striketh, checking out.